dog walking around.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. I am Anitra Steele, Chair of the Forums Committee. I want to welcome you to our forum for House Districts 21, 28, 29, and 30 for the November 5th election. These are all Jackson County districts. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved in sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like for you to know the other league members volunteering with me. Elizabeth Darr is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Donna Haug. The public has sent in the questions via the league's website, lwvkc.org. This forum will be recorded and available on the league's website and YouTube. Tonight, we welcome our moderator, Sandy Eads, former president of the Kansas City League. Welcome, Sandy, and candidates. Here we go.
Thank you, Anitra, and candidates. Really, I'm glad that you guys are here. Getting participation in these things is very important in our mission to help educate voters. So tonight we're going to hear from candidates running in 4 state house districts for the opportunity to represent their state's voters. Missouri state representatives and senators work alongside the governor to create laws and establish a state budget. Responsibilities include passing bills on public policy matters, setting levels for state spending, raising and lowering taxes, and voting to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes. State representatives are limited to 4 2-year terms. State senators are limited to 2 4-year terms. These forums last about 90 minutes, depending on the questions and the number of candidates. I'll ask each candidate the same questions selected from those submitted by the public. The order of candidate responses has been determined by random rotation. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond to each question and 2 minutes for a closing statement. All of the candidates running for these districts have been invited. So we welcome the candidates participating in tonight's forum. Candidates, please answer the question asked, stick to the topic. There will be no rebuttals, but you may go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing remarks. So let's begin. And we'll start with Marion Breitenbach. Please introduce yourself, tell us your education and background, and most importantly, why are you running for state legislature?
I'm Marion Breitenbach, running from the 21st District. I graduated from college at K-State. I am 69 years old. I recently sold my donut shop in Raytown, and I had some friends that decided that I ought to run. And I originally said no, but they twisted my arm, and so I went ahead and ran. One of the biggest motivating factors is I've got grandkids, and I had a pretty good life growing up, and I'd like to see that they have a chance to have a similar type of life.
Thank you. Will Job, you're up next. Please introduce.
Thank you. And thank you to the League for the opportunity to introduce our.
I think you broke up there, Will.
He said he was having some internet problems.
I apologize for that.
He's at the library.
Giving people an opportunity to meet us and to hear our views and to make an informed decision when it comes to vote. My name is Will Jope. I'm running to represent you in the 21st District in the Missouri House. That covers most of Independence. I'm a husband, a father of 4 boys. I've been a minister in my church for over 20 years. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. I'm an attorney. I'm also a fourth generation of independents, currently raising what will be the fifth generation to live in our wonderful city. And my story and the reasons why I'm running for office goes back over 20 years. I graduated high school in 2001 and went off to college to start my undergrad education. I was going to major in agriculture economics and go back home and raise cows. And I was there for about 3 weeks.
Well, we lost you.
Bummer.
Unmute.
3 weeks in was when 9/11 happened and changed my trajectory in life. And I think everybody who was around for that. I joined the Army. There, I did civil military operations, tried to help people and get government and services running again in other countries, and tried to figure out how to do that.
Thank you. Steve Hinton, you're next.
Okay. Well, let's see. The college I went to was called the United States Air Force. They had some kind of draft going on then, and it didn't work out that I could get out of it. So I went through the Air Force, also worked at the railroad for a number of years, trying to educate myself about different things and working around smart people. My concern also is my grandkids, of course, what's going on with them in these schools, especially in Missouri. I've went to classes about that and learned about what the schools are doing and teaching the kids. And I got a 17-year-old grandson that can't even read cursive. I mean, kind of sad. And, I think some things need to be changed, which change is always good sometimes, and sometimes it isn't. I've lived in this Raytown area that I'm running for about 25 years now. I used to live in Kansas when I worked at the railroad. So, but, I just want to see some things being right. I don't like the way things are going. And so, like I say, I'm concerned, like Marion said, about my family, what's going on with them and what are we leaving after I learned what I learned in the military and what they taught us about survival, and the survival thing ain't working too good. So that's why I'm running.
Thanks very much. Aaron Crossley.
Hey, good evening, and thank you so much, first of all, to the league and everyone on this call for joining in to make sure that our constituents and our voters know and make an informed choices this November. I'm Aaron Crossley. I've been proud to represent House District 29 down in Jeff City for the last 2 years, so just finishing up my freshman term. I'm a social worker, and that's why I originally ran for office. I ran 2 years ago because I had spent 2 decades in social service, working with people as a pastor, as a case manager in community behavioral health in an elementary school. And as I listened to people's stories, I recognized that a lot of barriers that they encountered in their day-to-day life were created by people in government and by people in Jeff City. And so I ran to take those stories to the Capitol, and I've been proud as your state rep to work to create safer communities, to improve our educational system, and to advocate for healthcare, especially mental health care. And looking forward to sharing more as the night goes on.
Thanks very much. Kevin, tell us about you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing this opportunity to share who I am, and for all the other candidates that are here as well. I'm a product of the Eastern Jackson County area. I went to Mizzou down in Columbia, where I got my teaching degree, and I got my master's in specialist in administration for school up at Northwest Missouri State University. Growing up in Independence is where I grew up, just 10 minutes from where I am currently. I grew up in a UAW Local 249 house, where my dad worked up at Ford Motor Company on the truck side. He spent 33 and a third years up there and retired in 1997. And so having that background has really instilled in me the importance of what labor unions can do for families that allow them to provide for their families. I'm also a co-pastor in my congregation, and that's just part of who I am. I believe that in serving others and finding ways to help other people is a calling. And this is just an extension of what I did for 31 years. I was a public school employee for 31 years. I retired in the July of 2023. I did 7 years as a high school science teacher, then 24 as a school administrator. And the reason why I'm running is the main reason is I want to support public education and make sure that we do everything we can provide for the next generation, because education is the backbone for all of our students and for our society. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Will, we're going to shift over to you for the next question. Would you support an increase in the gas tax since our current tax is among the lowest in the country and our roads and bridges are in disrepair?
I'm sorry, I got, would you support an increase in the gas tax? And then I cut off.
Do you want me to repeat it?
I didn't know if there was more to the question.
No. Would you support an increase in the gas tax since our current tax is among the lowest in the country and our roads and bridges are in disrepair?
Well, I think that's absolutely an issue that we need to look at. I mean, roads and infrastructure is one of the key parts to a state's economy, business coming into the state, the ability of people to move around and safely move around the state. And I think that's essential. I think that we need to prioritize those issues that directly affect the state of Missouri. This is one.
Okay. Will you cut out or you're back?
Yeah, I am. Sorry about
Okay, that's all right.
And so, yes, I would support putting Missouri's infrastructure first and making sure that we are up to the times, that our roads and bridges are safe, that the ways that we drive to home and drive to work and take our kids on are safe and up to the standard that they need to be to make sure that we can continue to make Missouri a great place to be.
Thank you. Kevin, your thoughts on increasing gas tax?
Yeah, gladly. Well, first, before I think you would want to say yes to anything, you'd want to look at what the current budget is and see where the priorities are being placed. And so I'd quantify with saying yes, because I don't want to look at what the budget is and how we're doing, where we're allocating those funds for transportation. But Missouri does have some of the most dangerous roadways in the country, and we have some of the highest rates of bridges that are ready to be condemned and that need to be replaced. And without investment in that infrastructure, we're putting our citizens at risk. And so I would want to explore the possibility of what that would do to us, to our country, our state. And also, is it something that needs to be sunshined out? Because if we can increase our tax revenue for a little bit for the roadways, how long do we need to have that before we stop that? And should there be sunshine on that or not? So once again, I would be in favor of a gas tax if we could not find any type of revenue within the state already, or reallocate funds for that, and maybe consider a sunshine at the end of that where it doesn't go on in forever.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Aaron, your thoughts on the gas tax, on increasing it?
Thank you. I don't think that we need to jump in and immediately raise day-to-day prices of people. I know, raising two teenage kids, I already feel the squeeze myself at home. But serving on the budget committee for the last couple of years, I do know that there are dollars that we are not spending wisely right now, and I think that we should look at those first to make sure that we are investing in our infrastructure, as Will and Kevin said. I do think that one concerning part of this whole equation is that the legislature has an incredibly short attention span when it comes to working on real issues that impact people's day-to-day lives. Instead, they tend to focus on all of the culture war issues that are out there that have no impact on people's day-to-day lives, while we could be talking about how to fix our crumbling roads and bridges, while we could be talking about how to lower the cost of prescription drugs, et cetera. So while I do think a solution is needed to fix our roads, I think there's more conversation that needs to be had about our current budget and about how our dollars are currently being spent, and how we've essentially let a lot of federal dollars just evaporate and go back to the federal government and go to other states to invest in their roads, because our legislature and the majority party there has tended not to use those dollars when we could have instead.
Thanks very much. Marianne Reitbach, your thoughts, please?
Well, I definitely think the attention needs to be brought to the roads. We have some of the poorer roads around. But at the same time, the Missouri budget has increased dramatically in the last 4 years. I think it's increased something in the neighborhood of 50% or better. So I think we need to first look at where our budget and how it's being developed and where our money's coming from and where it's going. I'm not particularly against the gas tax, because that would be something that goes directly to some place where it is used. If you use gas, you're theoretically driving on the roads. So that brings it pretty close home to the user pays for the deal. But at the same time, Missouri is getting way too bloated in the way they're spending money. And so I would like to see emphasis put on where the money is going, and maybe bringing some of that other revenue back into the roads instead of where it's going now. But ultimately, the roads need to be worked on.
Thanks very much. Steve, you get to close this out on this question.
Well, guys down in Jeff City passed the gas tax without the voters getting ready to do it. So the gas tax thing is already in there for the next few years. And it'd be interesting to see, as some others are saying, first of all, I would want to see the budget, where the money's going. Is there things that can be cut? Because, I think, especially in Jackson County, we've all experienced this wonderful group down there downtown that's managed to raise our property taxes about 30 to 100%. That's hurt a lot of people. And then, of course, a few people that drive have to pay more for gas. That's because of, in the last 3.5 years, they've managed to double the price of gas. So, I don't want to hurt people. I want to help them, and I think a lot of us do. So we need to look at where the money is going now, seeing if there could be some changes, because we all want safe roads. We all want to be safe. We want our families to be safe. And other things, I've driven on other states in the last few months that, they've got some challenges too, but we still got to worry about here, and how some of the other states that are doing it, what are they doing that we could maybe follow along with and not have to raise taxes? That would be a thing that I would like to see first.
Thanks very much. Aaron, we're going to have you lead off with the next question. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world?
I really appreciate this question, because I feel like a lot of my effort, most of my effort in the last 2 years has been on preserving our public education system. From the state level, we are 50th in the nation in funding our public school classrooms, which I find abhorrent. And, we have to make up those costs with our local property taxes. Ultimately, I believe that local communities make the best decisions about how their kids should be raised. I believe that parents make that best decision at home. And so I think, there's been a lot of effort the last couple of years, at least while I've been there. And I know that it started before I got there, to impose legislator viewpoints on curriculum. And I will always fight against that. I think parents and local communities make those decisions best. I'm making sure that we are also investing in apprenticeships and making sure that we're getting real world experience in our education system is really important to me. Here in Independence, we have a great way that we prepare our high school students with different academies so that students can leave high school with a career. And I think ultimately we should also incentivize trade schools and skilled trade, just as much as we incentivize and promote four-year colleges as well.
Thanks very much. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that I've seen in meetings in the last couple of years is DESE down there and is kind of out of control. Again, these kids are not getting taught some of the things that they really need to know. The school system has kind of been failing as far as in Missouri. I see over in Kansas too, because that's where a couple of my grandkids go to school. So I'm seeing the local Kansas City area as a whole asking questions and stuff. But DESE's gotten, from what I see, too powerful. Things that are going on in the schools need to be turned around. We need to kind of go back to some basics. Like he said, also, and then instead of maybe promoting college, maybe some kids go to trade schools and stuff. I mean, I went to trade school and learned a trade. One of my grandkids is learning trade and stuff instead of going to college, and they still can be successful and be a very important part in the community, helping not only when they have kids and keeping an eye on things, but being a good person in the area. So the schools need to be looked at, and probably some changes for sure in that.
Thanks very much. Mr. Grover, your thoughts on the curriculum?
Well, thank you very much. As a retired educator, 31 years, this is something dear to my heart. And I agree with a lot of the stuff that's been said, but everybody has pointed out that we'd like to have more local control, but reality is that schools are evaluated and judged and rated based upon the DESE's MSIP 6, and they have to hit the scoring guide. And so schools will focus on what they're being assessed on, where they can reach accreditation and have the highest rating possible. If we want to change what the curriculum is, we had to get to DESE. We had to work with them to make them focus on the things that we feel are important. And back in the 90s, it was, higher education, push that as much as you can, ACT, SAT, get kids into collegiate level classes. And that's all we focus on. And we kind of got away from some of those hands-on real world applications. Lately, a lot of the school districts are starting to change that. We have students in the area that go to the Aviation Institute program right off of behind Arrowhead, where they go for 2 years, 1 year in high school and 1 year afterwards, and they come out ready to work on airplane engines. It's a great career. We have schools that are doing drone programs, welding, you name it. So finding ways to get more real world applications where kids can go straight into the job force, workforce development, go straight into a trade, or areas that we need to focus on as well, besides the higher education push.
Thanks very much. Marion, your thoughts about curriculum in the current world matchup?
Well, I had a donut shop, so I managed to be able to talk to a lot of people. And a lot of those people were teachers. And one of the biggest things the teachers wanted more than anything was to be supported and to be safe. They're actually scared of some of the kids that they're teaching. It's kind of a wild, wild west in some of the schools at different times. And the teachers, that one of the things they said, they just would like to have more support. Also, I'm old school. I think we should be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's the backbone for everything. And the biggest one is reading. Reading is the backbone for anything you want to do. Anything you want to do, you got to study a manual or something, and reading is by far the most important. And I think we have a slight disconnect on the way we respect administrators and teachers. Administrators seem to get more respect than teachers, and the teachers are the ones that are actually teaching our children. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Will, finish us up on this topic.
Thank you very much for the question. And I would tell you that as a primary issue and the biggest thing that we need to look at in terms of our public education system is the support or the lack thereof that we're giving to our schools, to our teachers, and the people that give their lives to teach and help our kids. In the state of Missouri, the minimum starting teacher salary is currently $25,000 a year, which to my point of view is almost a ridiculous level. If you go right across the state line into Arkansas, the minimum is $50,000. And so it's hard to keep and retain teachers and keep people in the profession in the state of Missouri if you can go across one state border and double your starting pay. The funding that we provide to schools overall is based on a foundation formula that is based off of 2005 numbers. It's almost 20 years old. And we don't even meet what is that adequate number based on 20-year-old numbers today. And so I think primarily we need to actually give our schools and our teachers the things that they need to do their jobs and let them do their jobs. Go back to more local control. I don't think legislators or people in Jeff City need to mandate more and more and more things and put their fingers in the jar and control what we do.
Thanks very much. Kevin, we're going to shift over to you. Why do you support or oppose Proposition A, which would guarantee paid sick leave and a gradual raise of the minimum wage to $15 an hour from the Missouri current minimum wage of $12.30?
Yeah, thank you. So I am in supporter of Proposition A. I think that is something that is appropriate. It's not a huge jump in the minimum wage that we currently have, but the thing that I'm most excited about is the earned sick leave that parents can have. As a school, working in the schools for 31 years, I saw a lot of parents that were not able to come up to school to visit with the school, to pick their child up from school in a timely manner because they were working a job that if they didn't show up, if they weren't there, they would not get paid because they did not earn any sick leave. So by giving the earned sick leave, it allows parents to be able to have that option as well as not go to work and spread communicable diseases. If they use that time to be able to go in conference with the teacher, I think that'll address some of the issues that we've talked about, several people talked about as far as the amount of support that we have in the public education with the teachers, with the parents, that teamwork there, but also just providing that $15 an hour and then going, over the 2-year increase and then tying it to inflation. I think that just keeps us from having to keep coming back every 5 or 6 years to increase the minimum wage. And it just gives us a basic standard amount of living that our citizens can count on.
Thanks very much. Aaron, your thoughts? And by the way, I'll reread any question if you need it.
Good. Thank you. I do support Prop A, I think, for all of the reasons that Kevin mentioned, and mostly I support it because it reflects the viewpoints of my constituents. As I've been going door to door, a lot of folks say they have a hard time being able to get to their job when their kids are sick, especially. And so having that paid sick leave, having that paid time off is just a pro-worker position, and I will always take that pro-worker position. I recently joined CWA Local 6400, which is the state the Missouri State Worker Union, and I did that to stand in solidarity with them. A lot of their rights as workers have been taken away from them, and I will always stand up for the workers in my district.
Thanks very much. Will Job, your thoughts?
Thank you for the question, and I do and will always stand for the workers in my community and our communities, and for that reason, I will support and do support Proposition A. I think that what is a marginal raise in the minimum wage is sorely needed, and what I'm also more excited about is the idea of guaranteed sick leave that you earn over time. Because far too many of the people that live in our districts are either in a situation where they don't get that paid time off at all, or they only get a combination where you get a certain amount of vacation time at the beginning of the year, and there is no accommodation for sick leave at all. And it makes it hard for people that work every day, for people that have kids who get sick. It's one of the things I discovered becoming a father for the first time was that I got sick a lot more than I used to, because they get sick too, and they give things to me, and not having the option to have that paid sick leave that I earn over time. I don't know what I would do or how I would get by. And I think it's tremendously important to our workers, and I absolutely support.
Thanks very much. Mr. Hinton, your thoughts on Prop A?
Well, I've talked to a lot of different people on both sides of the coin. And of course, it's always nice to make a little more. And I've had several jobs where I didn't have sick leave either. So I know it is very rough raising a family to do that. But, you know, out in California, you look out there, and I read where the guy who owned Burger King, he was willing to spend millions because he was going to put in automated systems, and there's going to be less people working there. So I guess you're going to have to decide. Obviously the sick part is a good thing. Raising the minimum wage going to be a tough one because people on both sides, the businesses are screaming, because it's getting into their profits, and they're just going to lay off more people. So there's going to be less people working. So I'm all for people making more money, of course. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I say, I worked at the railroad. We didn't have much sick leave. Worked at the phone company. We didn't have much sick leave, but I was in the union in both places, and it wasn't really there. So, but most of the time I got sick was from the kids coming home from it because they brought it home to me. I worked outside at the railroad for over 20 years, and I hardly ever got sick, but kids always bring it back. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one to see, how businesses are going to be affected. They're going to lay off people. So what's going to happen? I hope people make a good decision for themselves.
Thanks very much. Marion, you get to wrap up this question for us.
Gee, thanks. I just out of principle, I have a tendency to be against it. In my donut shop, I had a tendency to pay minimum wage anyway. It's not the issue of being able to pay the money. The issue is in the donut shop, you hire kids that are not fully trained. They might not be worth $15 an hour. They may be worth $6, $8 to come in and do a little job, just help them get started. And if you take that away, there's certain jobs I'm not going to pay $15 an hour to do certain jobs in the donut shop. And with you got child labor, that's their starting job, and that's where they get started. That's where they learn what's expected when they work. And I've never had a problem with the people working with me because I always try to treat them good and work with their circumstances so that they can put in a few hours and make a few bucks. And when you take and mandate stuff, then that takes away some of this stuff. And then, like Steve was saying, you can pay a lot of money for equipment if you can get rid of some labor. And so when you start pushing them prices up high enough, business people are going to put in more equipment to counteract that. And so your net gain in labor is going to be less. So it's a sticky wicket.
Thanks very much. Steve Hinton, we're going to have you lead the next one off here. Missouri has the 5th highest gun death rate in the country, according to a recent article in the Star. More than half of these deaths are suicides. As a member of the legislature, what gun laws would you support?
Well, I think the gun laws is who's got the guns and what are they doing with them? Because, I started out at 19 years old. Uncle Sam started handing us guns, and there was nobody around me that got shot. But these people aren't locking these guns up. I mean, I've been watching the news about the parents that went to jail up there up north at that school because they let the guns out. The kids got a hold of them. I mean, parents are supposed to be in charge, and some of them are not doing a very good job. I mean, if I got kids at home and I got guns, I'm gonna lock them up. I mean, unless I go get them out. But and I've seen a couple of those stories. I've been reading, actually been watching on Dr. Phil about, the things these schools. That one parents they were going to jail because they didn't lock the guns up. So I don't think it's the guns the problem. I think it's the people that's not controlling the guns.
So
we had guns out here for a long time.
This is about laws. Are there any laws that you would support?
As far as getting rid of guns?
As far as regulating guns in any way?
No, I don't think there's a problem.
Okay.
I think it's the parents.
Okay. Aaron Crossley, you're next.
I'm a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe that we should uphold the right to bear arms, especially or including for the protection of person and property. And we know that the leading cause of death for children in Missouri is death by firearms, which is a clear sign that there is a problem and that the current policies that we have are not working. And I'm tired of people in government throwing their hands up and saying there's nothing we can do when there is a problem, and that's why we elect them is to do something. One thing that one bill that I filed this year was to close the loophole in federal law that allows individuals under 18 to buy ammunition without sellers verifying their age. So my bill would just put Missouri in line with what the law already is, but would require sellers of ammunition to verify age, just like they do with alcohol and tobacco, because I think our communities will be safer and we won't be infringing on responsible gun ownership.
Thanks very much. Marian, what do you think?
Well, I'm pretty much a Second Amendment supporter. Guns aren't the problem, it's the people that are the problem. If we got that much, well, it's a mental illness when you want to take your life. People are pretty depressed. And so I think there's other issues that we need to be looking at that's far more important than the gun.
Thanks very much. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. This is an issue that affects so many people in our community and throughout our state. And I have no problem with the Second Amendment. I think it's an appropriate thing. I think it's written there, and I want to support that. But I also think that part of our responsibility is to safeguard our citizenship, pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And so some of the simple gun laws I would suggest would be like safe storage practices. Make it a requirement that you have safe storage. Also, red flag laws or extreme risk laws for someone that might be having a mental health breakdown. And if they have guns, then the authorities would have the opportunity to remove those for a certain period of time and then return them to get them out of that crisis moment. Studies that show that students that, youth that have done something with a weapon, 75% of those they get from a home or they get from a neighbor's home because they weren't locked up. So once again, that safe storage is one of the most important things that we can do. And that doesn't infringe anybody's right to own a gun, but it will protect all these horrific accidents of a toddler or 5-year-old or 8-year-old accidentally shooting their brother, their sister, their mother, just through the practice of safe storage.
Thanks very much. Will, you're got the last thoughts on this.
Thank you for the question. And I think it brings up two different issues. The first of which is about the unfortunate suicide statistic that you talked about, and the what we need to do more, in my perspective, to support people in mental health needs, to support people in that situation in life where they feel like there is no other option, and that they head down that path that is detrimental to them. I remember being in the Army when we stood down for a few days because the number of deaths to suicide had eclipsed the number of deaths to combat while we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think first we have to recognize that there is a problem and be willing to talk about it. We have to improve our funding and our mental health resources that we offer to people. And we also have to recognize that the situation in rural Missouri is not the same as the situation in Kansas City or St. Louis. And we need to give local municipalities the opportunity to craft their own ordinances and legislation about gun carrying and carrying guns in their city, and allow local municipalities to actually do what's best for their communities.
Thanks very much. Will, don't go anywhere. You're next. Missouri is one of 26 states which allows citizens to amend the Constitution by an initiative petition. Currently, these petitions will pass with a simple majority vote. after a sufficient number of supporting signatures have been gathered. Efforts in the legislature to raise the threshold fell short this year. Would you support making it more difficult to change the Constitution through our existing petition process? Why or why not?
Thank you. And I would not support legislation or the idea that we need to make it harder for the citizens of the state of Missouri to make their voice heard and to use the initiative petition process to bring the changes in our state government that they want to see. You know, at a basic level, and we have to recognize that the reason why this is utilized is because the people feel like their elected representatives are not doing what they want them to do, and that their voice is not.
We lost you, Will.
Sorry. Now, so I would not support that measure at all. In particular, this measure that was up in the last legislative session would actually incorporate a different way of calculating the support and end up with your vote would count for more or less, depending on which part of the state you were from. I don't think that that is what Missouri stands for. I don't think that's what our country stands for. The idea that somebody's vote counts more or less depending on where you live. And I would just oppose any effort to try and silence the will of the people and to not listen and respect to their opinions.
Thank you. Mr. Hinton, your thoughts?
Well, what I've seen of it, it only seems to count in a few popular counties that have a lot of population. So that's where it seems to be strong, this initiative petition. So there again, you're not hearing from all the people everywhere. So I think there needs to be a fairness of it out there instead of just in a few counties that are larger and more populated. Then you got some of these rural counties that don't have a lot of people in it. And that's something that doesn't seem, and I'm not, you know, that's why the people have the right to vote. And the initiative petition doesn't seem to allow that very well. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Kevin.
Yeah, no, I would not be in support of changing and making it harder. I believe that the initiative petition is one of the truest forms of democracy that we have, where your vote counts. And to address what Will was talking about, I think it's if one region of the state, which represents 23% of the population of the state, voted against it, they could keep it from going. That's not the right way of doing that. And so I agree 100% with what he was saying. And so with that in mind, I feel that if you were to change the initiative petition, it's a type of voter suppression. It keeps the citizens from putting on the agenda on the ballot an issue that they want to get addressed. And it is truly, as Will said, because of the lack of legislative success. They're not addressing it. You look at expanding Medicaid. That had, to get Medicaid expanded within Missouri, they had to go the initiative petition. The same way with overturning right to work. Right to work was overturned with 70% voting to overturn that. That was done by the people saying this is not appropriate, this is not what we like. And so they put it on the table and got all the signatures throughout the state, and they got it overturned. And it's also something that has been used on both sides. Both sides of the aisle have used this over the years. And then at times when it's not going for them, they want to get it changed. So I think it works both ways.
Thanks very much. Marion, what do you think?
I think it definitely needs to be changed. The Missouri Constitution is the guiding light of our state. It's not designed to be changed willy-nilly. Any changes made to the Missouri Constitution should be done with great foresight and with an immense amount of discussion, and for the issue to be fully discussed, and all actions and stuff that would affect you needs to be discussed, and it needs to be, I guess I better settle down here. You need to make sure that your changes you are making are what you want to make, and that it follows through with what your principles are. Whenever you make changes, there's always repercussions. And so you want to make sure that what you're changing is exactly what you want to change. And that takes more than just a simple majority vote. If you take any constitutional amendment in our forefathers for the national government, it takes something like 2/3 to get it changed. I think a simple supermajority would be adequate, which I think is somewhere around 55%. But it shouldn't be just 50% plus one. Somebody with deep pockets and a lot of money can come in and put an issue in there and have it run through, and nobody really knows for sure what's happened, and it can be passed before it's fully discussed and before people fully know what consequences will come about by that change.
Thank you. Aaron.
I think we do know what's happened is that people have made their voices heard, and politicians in Jeff City don't like what they said. And so they want to make it harder for them to make their voice heard. So I am firmly against changing the initiative petition process. You know, sometimes people argue, well, it makes our Constitution too big. Well, most of the changes, or like around 85% of the changes of the 122 changes that have been made to the Constitution since the 1940s, those initiatives have been put on there by the legislature. And so if we don't like how many changes are happening, if we don't like how big our Constitution is getting, we should limit politicians' ability to put these on the ballot. But we shouldn't take that right away from people. We need to find more ways to make our voices heard and not less, because ultimately our elected officials work for us. And if we feel like they aren't working for us, we should have the recourse to be able to show them that they're not, and to make our voice heard.
Thank you. Will, the next question is, in 1992, riverboat gambling was approved by Missouri voters partly because tax monies would go to support schools. We now know it is instead of state funds rather than in addition to state funds. So Amendment 2, which will be on the ballot, asks voters to support sports betting, with the taxes generated going to support education, including primary, secondary, and higher education. Will these taxes be used in the same way or be in addition to support from the general fund?
Thank you for the question. And I would say that's been the major problem with so many of the efforts that have gone forward over the last few years to increase funding to education, is that it sounds good, and they put it on the ballot language because it sounds good and people will want to vote for it. But at the back end, it ends up being a bait and switch where that money may be allocated theoretically to the education budget, but what happens is the state takes that much out of their appropriation. And so the schools end up getting what they would have otherwise got. The state just gets to, or the government gets to withhold that amount of their money and use that for their own projects or for whatever else they want to. And I think what we need as much as anything in Jeff City is people that will go and fight for public education, and fight for the fact that the money that our citizens vote to go to public education should go to public education, and not in a way that is a bait and switch and doesn't actually change anything. That you should actually give respect for what the people actually voted for, and fund the schools in addition to, and not move things around on the budget cycle and make it not work.
Thanks. Aaron, how do you feel about sports betting and education funding?
This is probably the number one question I've gotten at doors the last couple of weeks, as people are doing their homework, and I'm seeing some head nods, so it looks like other people are getting that too. Will did a great job of kind of summing up the current situation. I think people assume that those boats and moats, that money, it would be extra for our education. But what my colleagues are tending to do down in Jeff City is to take that tax revenue from gambling, subtract that amount from general revenue that's going to education, and then just adding it in. So teachers are still getting the same amount. And we know that our teachers deserve so much more than they're getting. They shouldn't have to start the school year and empty their own pockets to buy supplies for their job. No other profession, makes you bear the brunt like we make teachers do that. And, I've had teachers tell me they kind of feel like pawns in this whole discussion as well. Ultimately, when people go to the ballot box and they look at this initiative, they need to kind of take that away, because take that educational funding thought out of their mind when they're considering it. They just need to ask themselves, do they support sports betting or do they not? And then if it passes, and with the gambling money that we still get from those tax dollars, keeping our legislature accountable, making sure that our legislators are adding that in as extra money for textbooks and supplies and school funding, and not less.
Thank you. Mr. Breitenbach.
Well, I personally kind of like to gamble, but at the same time, I hate to lose money. So I don't have a problem with gambling, but there's some people that do have a problem with gambling. So from that point of view, I'm against it. From the viewpoint of whether people should be allowed to gamble, fortunately, it's an initiative petition, and the people get to decide what they want on that. And the way you phrased the question, I thought was very intriguing. Bait and switch. That's what the governments are good for. They always use police, fire, and students when they're trying to get money. And so I always tell people, when they put it on the ballot, ask if they're going to increase the budget by this amount. Because usually they just take, like they said, they just take it out of general revenue and pull it out of the other end. So it's up to the people on what they want on this issue.
Thank you. Kevin Grover.
Yeah, as Aaron said, it's one of the most common questions I get asked when I ask people what's important to you. Do you have any questions for me? And they go, tell me more about this amendment too. As a former educator, what do you think? And, it is an initiative petition that wasn't brought by the legislature, but it was brought as an initiative petition because the legislature could not come to an agreement on what to do. And so now we have an outside organization with lots of deep pockets that has written a very sweetheart deal for themselves, being taxed at only 10%. The highest taxing on this type of betting is 51% in 3 different states. I'm not saying we need to do 51%, but 10% is very low. When they talk about $100 million over the 5 years, that's not much money when you look at the big picture. So they're basically talking about they want to contribute 0.2% of the funding for public education. That's what that comes out to, is 0.2%. So it's not going to help teachers out, because we know it's going to be instead, not in addition. So it's just going to be come in and go out the back door. And so for that, it's something that I have not supported. I think it should have been rewritten. It should have been passed with a much higher tax rate. I imagine it will pass because there's a lot of people that want to gamble, and I don't have a problem with gambling. I just have the way that it was written.
Thanks very much. Steve, Amendment 2, what do you think?
Well, of course, like most of the people are saying, we got 4 casinos over here that are, I hear a lot of people out here that go there and love to spend their money, and the schools aren't getting any more. They've did as Will said, the bait and switch. So they should be getting double the money they're getting. Then the poor teachers, like Aaron said, wouldn't have to dig in their pockets and have to buy stuff for the kids, to help them teach the lessons that they're supposed to teach, in their curriculum. It's just a sad thing. And this is just going to be another deal. It's just going to be another thing for the gamblers to take money, and then they're, like you say, they're going to not give the schools any more money. They're going to take it away and put it in the general fund for whatever they're doing with it. Maybe they could use it for the gas tax, to help the roads.
Okay. Aaron, we're going to go over to you for the next one. Let's see here. There are 6 ballot measures on the November 5th ballot. 2 are constitutional amendments sponsored by the legislature. The next 2 questions concern these amendments. Amendment 6 would impose a $3 fee in every circuit court criminal case, which would go towards funding retirement benefits for sheriffs and other court personnel. In 2021, the Supreme Court rejected this approach as unconstitutional, saying that those fees are not reasonably related to the administration of justice. What is your position on Amendment 6, Aaron?
I think this is an example of the legislature not fulfilling its promises to its citizens. You know, workers' pensions, our state workers' pensions are constantly under attack, and so trying to piecemeal a fund together with $3 fees probably isn't the best way. This year we were able to pass a supplemental budget to help kind of with the shortfall on this, but our law enforcement deserves so much better and so much more than that after a lifetime of service to our community. And so I think you know, finding a more salient way of funding this long term is going to be really important. I believe I'll have to go back and look. I should have looked before this, but I believe that I voted to get this on the ballot. I think it's an important issue for people to weigh in on. But you know, our law enforcement, our teachers, all of our public workers, you know, a lot of my colleagues want to privatize their pensions. They want to figure out these schemes to make them not what they should be. And after a lifetime of service to our community, people deserve so much more.
Thanks very much. Steve Hinton, your thoughts?
Well, I'll give you one. I worked at the railroad for a number of years, and the politicians were always wanting to get their hand in railroad retirement. And we fought them and fought them and fought them, and they still haven't got their hands on it. And look what they've done to Social Security. So now it's just gone downhill with, you know, all these retirement funds that the states aren't doing whatever they're supposed to do, and they're moving money around and stuff. And so it's sad that this has come to this. And like I say, the railroad thing was a fight clear back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, to Congress wanting to keep getting their hands on it like they did Social Security and take all that money. I think today it takes approximately 12 to 15 people to pay into Social Security for one person retired. So that's what's happening with the states, and several states they've went bankrupt with paying off their employees and stuff. It's sad what they've done. As Aaron said, these legislatures need to get some acts together down there to work on some stuff that would take care of everybody instead of what they've been doing, you know?
Okay. Mary, what do you think about this amendment?
Well, I have a tendency to respect the Supreme Court. They made a decision, and I think they made a valid decision. I don't like to see all this piecemeal stuff helping people out. It needs and I think it needs to go back to the drawing board, and more thought needs to be put into it instead of trying to put it on the backs of the people.
All right. Kevin, last word on this.
Yeah, I think one thing we all realize is that we're talking about people that have given a large part of their life to the service for the better good. And so we need to find a way to provide them the appropriate retirement, the appropriate revenue stream for that. However, I don't know if this is the right way where the revenue stream to help supplement the retirement is based upon how many people end up going through the criminal justice system. It puts, you know, that was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court when they said it was unconstitutional. So I would love to see a more dedicated, more consistent revenue stream for these individuals, the attorneys, prosecuting attorneys and sheriffs, because they don't get paid enough, and the retirement needs to reflect the hard work, but also have that consistency to where they don't have to question, are we going to have enough or not?
I was wrong. You got second to the last word, Will. I know. I could see you just looking at me saying, wait a minute. So
Thanks
Will,
for his
you
question.
do get the last word.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the last word, or whatever word I get in whatever order that
Sorry
it
about
happens. So no problem. My position is simply that in 2021, I believe that the Missouri Supreme Court got this right when they said that the retirement funds and the fees that fund that are not reasonably a part of the administration of justice in making sure that our court system actually runs in a way that it should be included in that. That being said, I think that the people that dedicate their lives to keeping us safe and to making our society and the court system run deserve a secure and safe and stable retirement fund. And I would suggest that putting it as a fee attached to criminal cases is not a secure or stable way to do that. Being a criminal lawyer for a number of years, I would say that the number of people that actually end up paying those fees is probably not very great. And I think that our sheriffs and court employees and the people that would be in that retirement system deserve a retirement system that's funded and funded well, and that the state actually comes to the table and makes sure that that retirement system is funded rather than trying to pass it off as a fee on some other group of people.
Thanks a bunch. Kevin, you're up first on this one. Amendment 7, also proposed by the legislature, is a two-parter. It would forbid ranked choice voting, which is essentially a means of having an instant runoff in elections in which there are multiple candidates. It also states that only U.S. citizens would be allowed to vote, which is already the law in every state, including Missouri. What is your position on Amendment 7?
Well, this is another one of those questions that I get asked at the door quite a bit because very few people understand what this amendment is about. And so the first thing that I think that we all aware of is the ballot candy that is listed first in the description, and that is talking about the non-citizens voting. As we all know, it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in any election in Missouri. So if we take that out, because it's not needed, then we look just at the petition that we have, and that is to ban ranked choice voting. Currently, there's only one jurisdiction in the state that uses that, over in St. Louis. And I think this is a way that the legislature wants to control what local jurisdictions can do. I don't agree with this. I don't know if I would want ranked choice voting, but I think it should be something that the local constituents should be able to have input on if they would like to try that or not. I know some locations throughout the states have tried it and they've gone back to the traditional model. Some have continued to use the ranked choice voting. Once again, I think it should be a local control and not something from the state level.
Thanks. Aaron, what do you think?
I think this is another, the legislature putting this on the ballot is another example of focusing on issues that aren't really helping put food on the table. This is more of a political bait and switch, political talking point that they can get sound bites for. As Kevin already mentioned, this isn't something that the state of Missouri does at all, and it's only used in one municipality. Other municipalities use kind of quasi versions of this, and I don't understand why we need to go after one community if they feel like that's a voting system that best helps them and helps their community. I really think this is just another kind of top-down mandate from the state that disregards what local voters and communities want. And Kevin is also exactly right about being ballot candy. I don't think nobody on this call wants non-citizens to be able to vote. No Missourian is calling for that to happen. It's already illegal in Missouri. It's already the law in Missouri that non-citizens cannot vote. That is put at the top to confuse people, to try to get them to vote for something that they might not want to vote for. But ultimately, I think Missourians are smarter than that. And I think that they'll see through that.
Thanks. Will, Amendment 7, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. And my position is going to be similar to what some of what you've already heard. I am opposed to Amendment 7 primarily because, as was mentioned, U.S. citizens or non-U.S. citizens already can't vote in our elections. I mean, there is nothing that is added by adding that language, and I think it's just there for directing your eyes to something other than what they actually want in the petition. And as far as ranked choice voting, I mean, we don't do it where I vote, but I don't see any reason to stand for the proposition that state government knows better than local government what is best for their community. And, I'm going to be on the side of local communities deciding what's best for them pretty much every time, rather than Jeff City getting involved in the works and telling people what to do.
Thanks. Steve?
Well, of course, like everybody says, we already have the point of where non-citizens can't vote in the state of Missouri. And I believe that, like several others have said, that it should be something that the local people decide instead of putting something out there, is that respect. And it's just, people need to have more say in things that they don't seem to be able to do. In situations like going back to the gas tax, those guys down in Jeff City passed that thing. The people didn't seem to want it. So they took that right away. And so there again, the people didn't get a choice. So I think people need to have more choice. That's my opinion.
Thanks very much. Marion, what do you think?
Well, everybody's been talking about initiative petitions and the people ought to have a voice. Well, it looks like they got an initiative petition and the people have a choice whether they want ranked choice voting or not. I personally think ranked choice voting is very poor. I definitely want the other. And they say, well, I'm not supposed to be too scared about it, but ranked choice voting just recently came up. It didn't used to even be discussed. Well, if there's people starting to discuss it, I'm wanting to step on it and squash it right now. I don't like ranked choice voting, and I don't think we should have it. So I'll definitely vote for it.
All righty. Steve, next one, Amendment 3. Do you support Amendment 3, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative? You commit to upholding the will of the voters if it passes?
If it passes, whatever passes, I would always uphold the voters. But Amendment 3 is not being put out there correctly. People really need to realize that parents' rights are pretty important that they're not talking about. I know they're talking about abortion and they're pushing that issue out there, but they're not talking about parental rights. And if these kids get these surgeries or the abortion people get surgeries, they can't get sued. And so they have an opportunity to go someplace other than hospitals or whatever to get some stuff done. And it's not going to turn out to be very good. So they're taking away parents' rights, which they're not putting in the deal. I don't see hardly anything about it. They want to push the abortion issue.
I want to question that a little bit, Steve. Is this not allowing the parents to make the choice?
It's not. It is not. The kids can go to school and say, I want to be whoever.
This is reproductive freedom now. We're not talking about.
But it's still
transgender.
it's still in, I know, it's still in number 3. It's all in, and that's what they're not talking about. And it's in that amendment. Okay, settle down. Don't bite them yet. So that's the thing that they're not talking about. They're not talking about parental rights, and that's in that amendment. They're talking about abortion. I understand that, and parental rights is not in there. So that's what needs to be brought up.
Thanks very much, Marion Breitenbach. Your thoughts on Amendment 3?
Well, I know it's a sticky wicket out there. People are talking about it. I have a tendency to be against it. I think it is poorly written. There's people who will argue that point, and it'll be discussed in courts in the future, one way or the other. At the same point, my main concern with abortion is I don't think it should be a form of birth control. If there's problems, medical problems, I like to leave the door open so that doctors and patients can discuss that and come to a conclusion that's best for them. But I don't think abortion should be a form of birth control. Thank you.
Kevin.
Yes, I would respect the will of the voters. I think that a woman having their bodily autonomy to make decisions that's appropriate for them is appropriate, especially in conjunction with talking with their family their physicians or whoever else that is important within their life to come to that decision. It's something that the vast majority of people that do need an abortion do not take lightly. It's a very emotional and sometimes traumatic experience. And it's not something to make light of. It's a transformational event for most people's life experience. With that in mind, I think that, we have no laws on record that control what a man can do with their body. So why do we have a record that controls what a woman can do? This is something that I've heard quite a bit on the doors, that on both sides of the aisle, that they think a woman should have the decision on what to do with their body. And I think it'll be passed fairly well. My main concern is what will happen afterwards, what type of restrictions and lawsuits that might be filed to keep this from being enacted. But yes, I would respect the will of the voters.
Thanks very much. Aaron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've already heard a little bit. There's a lot of misinformation out there living on the comments section and so on social media about this amendment. But let's go back and just remind ourselves that Missouri's current abortion law is one of the most extreme in the country. I was talking to a constituent at her door the other day who plans on voting no on this amendment, but she believed that there were exceptions in law for rape or incest. And in Missouri law, there is no exception for rape or incest. The government forces a woman to carry her rapist's baby to term. And I find that deeply upsetting and unacceptable. I support Amendment 3 because at the end of the day, I trust women making hard decisions in the doctor's office more than I do politicians making them for them from the Capitol building. And yes, I will absolutely uphold the will of the voters always.
Thank you. Will, Job?
Thank you. To start off with, yes, I will absolutely uphold the will of the voters as will be expressed on the ballot in November. And I think that's important for anybody who seeks to be in elected position representing the people of our communities in our state, that when the people express their voice and their vote, they should honor that. And as opposed to going into session the very next January and trying to come up with ways to undo that or to change it back to what you want it to be. I support Amendment 3 and do support there being an expansion of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights to include reproductive freedom, to include women's autonomy over their own body and the right to make decisions about their own body. I also would note that there isn't anything in Amendment 3 that talks about gender issues, that talks about liability of doctors. And if you want to be for sure about that, wait about 5 minutes after the election. If it passes, everybody that was saying all of those things will now be saying that the amendment didn't actually do anything. And going back completely on everything that they said before. But I would stand with Amendment 3 and a woman's right to choose.
Thanks very much. We're going to have one more question before closing statements, and I think some of you already know what it's going to be, which is, what is the one question you had wished I had asked, and how would you answer it? And Will, we're going to start with you.
I don't think I have a question that I would add. I would just express appreciation for the forum, for the insightful questions that you've asked, and for the opportunity to get our issues and our opinions and what we stand for out to the voters that will be making a decision in November.
Steve, what should I have asked, and how would you answer it?
Well, I don't know. I think there's been some mention of drug costs and stuff like that here floating around. And I've been working in the sales industry for Medicare for a number of years. And that would have been a good question to talk about for constituents, because people are going to get ready to see it coming. And that would have been a good question to dig into.
So pretend I posed that question, what would your answer be? Would your thoughts around that be?
Well, from what I've seen so far, we've had some repercussion in 2 to 3 months ago where the Kansas City Blue Cross is bailing out the Medicare plans because of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to cause, and the ripple is coming. I see the drug plans are changing drastically as far as where there was a lot of people that were going to getting low medication costs. They're going to have, in a lot of the plans, they're going to have a $590 deductible before the insurance companies are going to pay anything. Luckily, there are some coupons out there that people can get that some of the drugstores are helping them with, but that's something that's coming, and it's coming hard.
Thanks. Marianne, what question you wished I would have said, and how would you address it?
Well, you've done a pretty good job. You've covered most of the territory. The issue that is nearest and dearest to my heart is the property tax fiasco. I go out there and walking and talking to all the people, and there's a lot of people hurting. The biggest problem with the property tax deal was it wasn't fair. There was no uniformity or any standards that were followed. I've seen people that houses didn't get raised, and I've seen people that's had their houses raised 1,000%. There's no continuity to it, and the county is not taking any responsibility for their incompetence. And as a representative, there's been a bill passed, or not passed, it's been presented last year to limit how much property can go up each year in value. And I would support that.
Okay, let's see. Aaron, what question should I have asked?
I would choose, what is your plan to protect property owners? So to piggyback a little bit on what was just said, I've been proud of the work that I already have been doing. Those bills that Marian mentioned, I've been proud to be working on capping our property taxes, making sure that our county assessor is elected rather than appointed, and in general, just keeping Jackson County accountable for what happened to property owners last year. Also, I've been working on homelessness. Homelessness is a growing issue, not only in Missouri, but especially here in our region and in Independence. And I've been proud of the work that I have been doing to find compassionate and sustainable solutions for those experiencing homelessness. As a social worker, I've worked in the field. I've been out in homeless camps before, helping people connect to resources, to connect to jobs, to get off of the streets and back up on their feet. So I know what it takes. Really proud this year to get $500,000 in the state budget to come back to our community, to the Community Services League, for them to be able to open a homeless drop-in center, to be able to address homelessness right here in our community, so that people have the resources that they need, and so that property owners are protected.
Well, Sandy, I think you're saying it's my turn, but you're on mute. Is that correct?
It was a dog issue. You're right.
Oh,
Kevin, so Kevin, he just came racing downstairs. So Kevin, it's up to you now for what's the last magic question and how we do answer it.
well, I would probably say something along dealing with public schools as far as public money going to private schools. I'm a firm supporter that public schools are the backbone for our society. It's the way that we're going to elevate our whole community, and that all public dollars should only go to public schools. Private schools, if you want to send your student to a private school, it's something that is well within your right. But the issue I have with that is that if we send money to private schools, is they don't follow the same guidelines and rules and all the expectations that public schools have to follow. They don't have to take students on an IEP with disabilities. They don't have to take students with a 504. They don't have to take students that are disruption behaviors. Public schools take every student where they are and try to lift them up. And that is some really great work. And another thing I'd like to talk about is, just funding for public schools as far as for teachers. Someone mentioned about how teachers spend a lot of money out of their pocket. They get $200 of a tax credit on the state tax fees if they, when they file their returns, but maybe we should expand that to where if they show their itemized receipts, they can get a bigger tax deduction for all the money that they spend on their classroom. As one way to help out on the public teachers and helping them get a little bit more money back in their pocket.
Thanks very much. Okay, so candidates, it's time for closing statements. You'll get 2 minutes, and we're going to start with Will.
Thank you. And to continue with my introduction at the beginning, and to explain why I am humbly asking for your vote in November. My whole life has been public service in some form or fashion or another. It's been my entire career moving from one way of serving people and our communities to another. As I discussed, I joined the Army after 9/11 happened and served there for 9 years. I did civil military operations, which meant it was my job to be the person that stood in the gap for people when they were living in a country where there was a war being fought. And I was the guy that they came and talked to when they had a problem that needed to be fixed, when they had issue that they needed dealt with. It was my job to try and get government and services and help running again to people in their own lives and in their own communities. And I enjoyed that so much, being able to be that person for others, that I tried to find another way to do that when I got out. I became a lawyer. I worked at the public defender's office for 7 years. I worked in family court as a guardian ad litem for 2 years. And now I'm looking at the opportunity of transitioning to a new form of public service, representing you, my neighbors, my friends, and the people of our community, and trying to get good done for you in your lives, to fix problems, to actually talk and come up with solutions that are real and that actually solve the problems that are facing us today. And I humbly ask for your consideration and your vote in November so I can do just that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. Aaron?
Well, thank you, Sandy, and thank you to the league for hosting this, and thank you to those of you who showed up for this forum. I think it's unfortunate that some candidates did not view your time as worthy to show up to discuss these important issues. I believe our community deserves leaders who do show up. And I've been proud to show up for our community the last 2 years. We've had some big accomplishments together. I already mentioned the funding to address homelessness in our community. I've been really proud of all of the pro-business initiatives and policies that I've been able to work on. So much so that I was humbly named Freshman Legislator of the Year by the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. And also really proud that the first bill that I filed when I got to Jeff City, which was a bill to address mental health and PTSD for our first responders, grateful that that bill passed and that we've been able to get more resources and more funding and more mental health help for our first responders who deserve even more than we are already given them. I am looking forward to continuing to show up for you for the next 2 years. And if you ever want to get involved in my campaign in these next 19 days or ever need to get a hold of me, I'm always available to listen. My office is always open, and you can find my contact information at aaroncrossley.com. Thanks so much for being here and listening tonight or watching this recorded. And thank you so much for the honor of serving you.
Thank you, Aaron. Kevin Grover.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. As a first-time candidate, this is all new to me. It's very exciting, and I couldn't think of a better host for my first forum candidate along this line. So thank you so much. So as I said, I'm a first-time candidate, but I see this as a very pivotal election. I see this as a chance for it if and when I win the seat, it's going to send a clear message across the state by winning the seat. I see that as a representative. It's our job to represent and listen to the voters. So when I'm knocking on the doors, I'm asking people, what do you want from Jeff City or what you don't want from Jeff City? And even if we're across the aisle from each other, I need to hear from you what's important to you. So I have that with me. I feel that that's not being done in our district this time. You know, my opponent is voted for the right to work and is on record saying that he would vote for again, while 70% of people in Jackson County voted to override that back in 2018. And it was interesting when I was thinking about running for this and was talking to people about running and announced that I was going to run for the position against the presumptive Speaker of the House. Many people are like, well, good luck. Yeah, granted, I've encountered quite a few obstacles due to that, but I've made it a very competitive election. And I think that is because I'm meeting voters at the doors. I'm going there and I'm talking to them. I'm telling them exactly how I feel about issues, and they'll ask me questions point blank, and I will share that with them. I don't skirt around my opinions. I think that's something that's been missing in politics as far as giving a straight answer. And if you'd like to support my campaign, volunteering, or find out more about me, my website is Grover for Missouri, MO, grover4mo.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Marion, your closing remarks.
I've had a pretty blessed life. I grew up on the family farm, had a very good childhood, did about anything I wanted to do, played all the sports and all the stuff, had fun in school. And a lot of the problems that they have in school now, we didn't have back then. We actually, when we went to school, we had our shotguns in the back window of the pickup so that we'd go hunting on the way home. After I got done with the farm and it wasn't making enough money and I had to go out on my own, I went into donuts. And I've been in donuts for probably 35 years. And donuts is a sweet business. It's also a business where you get to serve your community. We had one guy come through our donut shop one time. We had to drive through. And he come by and says, I don't need a donut. I just come by for a smile. And so the business of donuts was serving our fellow citizens around us. We had a good time doing it. One of the things I learned by being in the donut business, since I was self-employed most of my life, was regulations. When I started out, the biggest regulation I worried about was the health department. They was a nightmare. Now the health department's the easy one. The cities and states are what's made it so difficult now. They got so many regulation, rules, and laws. They've dwarfed the health department. At least the health department, I know what they want. When you're talking about city regulations and stuff like that, you don't know for sure what they want. You never know what field they're going to come out of when you're trying to open a business. There's a huge amount of paperwork and stuff to open a business. And one of the biggest nightmares running a business is help.
Thanks very much. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
We're done. Steve, wrap us up here with your closing remarks.
Well, I guess at a young age, I started serving our country, Air Force, and learning things about what's going on in the background and trying to help protect our country. So that's kind of where I started out at the age of 19 and learning about all those things. And then I also worked at the railroad for a number of years. He was talking about the right to work. I lived in a state that had to, you didn't have to be in the union, and it didn't seem to be a big issue. I worked at the phone company. We were in the union. Didn't seem to be a big issue, but it's back to whatever the people want and understand. I'm not against unions because I've been in them and I've got kids that are in the unions now and stuff and all that. And, but one of the things that I seem to be passionate about is these children, seeing my grandkids who can't write cursive and stuff. And quite frankly, from what I've learned in the last few years about DESE and how they operate down there, they've kind of went overboard. And I'd like to see some changes in our schools here in this state and of course across the country and what they learn and stuff, like Marion said, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Let's learn some stuff that you can use and get them prepared for when they get out on life, whether they go to college or trade school. And, let's get these kids because, they're the backbone of our country and from what we're raising up. And I see my grandkids that are getting kind of lost in school with some of the stuff. And then like the teachers, they need to be paid more too. Let's get them, and somewhere some more money needs to come for them to help the teachers, because they shouldn't have to reach in their pocket to help these kids to give this stuff. That's just ridiculous. And we need to raise the price of what the schools starting out with.
Thank you very much. I want to say again, I really appreciate you guys showing up tonight and giving us your best thoughts on these questions. I wish you all the success in the election, and let's make sure that you really encourage your constituents to get out and vote and
Right.
look at these videos. And thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anitra?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience, for your interest in the November election. A recording of this forum will be available on the League's website, lwvkc.org. Please take a moment to share our forums with your Facebook, Nextdoor, and other social media channels. And remember, for voting and candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you and good night.
Good night.